Good morning and good afternoon to each and every single one of you. I appreciate you spending a little bit of your time the week before ISC West. Really excited about today's session. And as I mentioned, today we're going to be discussing that of the security company's playbook, winning strategies for both in-person as well as virtual events. And let's see here. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you, Kaylee. I really appreciate that. And appreciate that. So we'll probably get started in about 30 seconds. We've got a number of individuals that have RSVP today, and I know that we literally many of us are running at the last moment in preparation of being together next week, and I look forward to seeing each and every single one of you. So we'll give this just another sec, and then I will share my screen. Okay. So let's share this screen. And then if I can ask again, once again, if you can confirm that you can see my slide that says the Security Professionals Playbook in the chat, I would once again greatly appreciate that. And okay, awesome. And Ron, I think that means yes. So thank you very much as well. Okay. And awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. So with that said, we've got a lot of great stuff to share during today's event masterclass and talking about that of in-person and live in person, as well as webinar-based events. And we're going to even spend some time talking about networking and things in that regard as well. So, with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. And I will say this on a side note. Many of you have been on our webinars before, and for those of you that this happens to be the first time, a big thanks for once again spending time with us. You're going to notice that we really like to make this interactive. We really want to make the best effort to make sure that this is not like a, pardon me, like a one-way voice or just me sharing information with you. We want to make sure that this is providing you with as much detailed information as possible that's going to help. And the other thing to take into consideration, I just received a note a little earlier today from someone that's on the integrator side and said, Dave, I had RSVP'd for this. And as I take a second look at it, it seems like this is only going to be meant for vendors or manufacturers. And whereas we happen to be a vendor, not on the manufacturer side, but a vendor, and a lot of these things will hold true for that of on the vendor side. The things that we're going to be discussing today will also be for dealers and integrators, even if you're working with residential end users as well. Clearly, if you're working with that of the commercial SMB and commercial end users, a lot of these points and key principles will hold true. So with that said, really quickly, a little bit about us. We happen to be proud members of many of the industry's biggest associations. And once again, we look forward to having that grow over time. And really, we are a marketing agency. We only work with out-of-security companies, and it's all about placing you in the middle of success. In terms of some of the things that we do, we help with that of lead generation, building your brand throughout. And I'm not going to read through all these because you can read faster than I can read aloud. But as I'd mentioned, it is all about that of our AMP, or our accelerated marketing program. Whereas instead of us analyzing one group at a time, we're analyzing multiple groups at one time to really be able to pull that success and to analyze a lot of data. Allows us to make better, more well-informed decisions a lot more quickly. In terms of the groups that we work or the groups that we serve, on the AMP side, it's going to be like alarm dealers, integrators, guard patrol companies, fire alarm companies, and then we also do work with that of vendors as well. I would imagine that most, if not all of you, received an email, a combination of an email, phone call, text message from Isabella. Thank you, Isabella. I'm not sure if you're on live right now without me checking, but many of you that I have had the opportunity to speak with have great things to say about Isabella. And I really appreciate each and every single one of you that is very kind to her, because part of her role is reaching out just to make sure that you've got these webinars in your calendar, also to see as to whether you are interested in having us potentially help to see as to whether we're a great fit for each other and to do more of an audit on that of your marketing. If you're interested in that, please scan this QR code and we can proceed accordingly. All right, so let's scoot this out of the way. And it seems that we've got a number of us that are on live now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And once again, as I mentioned, we're literally just a couple days away from that of ISC West. I really look forward to seeing each and every single one of you this next week. at ISC West for those that are going to be attending live. I'll be really brief about this. I've been very blessed and fortunate to speak at many of the industry's biggest events. And keep in mind, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, I'd love to connect and keep this conversation going. Speaking of ISC West, we'd love for you to swing by our booth 1053. So it's going to be as you walk onto the show floor, it's all the way on the left-hand side, and it's the first few booths all the way on the left-hand side. The other thing is, for those of you that don't know, ISC West is starting a little early this year with education. So on Monday, the 31st, I'll be conducting a live in-person session discussing lights, camera, leads, and it's going to take place at 1:15 to 2:15 in Venetian 102. The other thing with ISC West is we recently announced that of an event that we're hosting along with the Seymour Group, our good friends at WBFA, as well as California Alarm Association. If you have not RSVP'd for it, please RSVP today. I think we have 250, 260 RSVPs already. And I suspect that we are going to be at capacity here before the end of the week. So please make sure you RSVP right away. A big thanks to that of all of our sponsors, AlarmMax, Emergency 24, Recognize, Observables, Keystone Security, Smart Integrators for You, Service Level Advisors, Rapid Response, AFS, and Vision Detection Systems. I really look forward to, once again, seeing you at ISC West at our booth, at my session, and that of our hosted event, Kingpins and Cocktails. It's going to take place Wednesday, April 2nd from 5:30 to 8:30. So the other quick thing, and then we're going to get on today's session, is I'm really excited about this one as well. I've not been to an SNDA conference. So for those of us that are Sonatrol dealers, I really look forward to discussing, having a session, and we'll be co-sponsoring that event there as well in just a few short weeks. Okay, before we get to our session, in terms of today's sponsor, I really want to give a big thanks to our great friends at Recognize. And for those of you that are not familiar with Recognize, Recognize helps with that of wireless outdoor intrusion detection. And they happen to use AI visual verification. They're an online platform that has hardware as well as the overall software or AI-based software, in terms of like that end-to-end solution. A big thanks to them once again. If you if you're not familiar with them, or if you're interested in learning more about our good friends at Recognize, use that QR code. And if you wouldn't mind letting them know that your good friends at SD Marketing sent you, we would greatly appreciate that. And thank you once again, Recognize, for the continued support. So before we get into starting the actual curriculum and getting into the prepared remarks, wanted to just go through a quick live poll, and we have just 3 quick short questions. What I will ask is if you can all participate in this and answer this honestly, and then I'd like for you to compare what you answered versus what your peers answered. I would greatly appreciate that. I'm going to participate in this as well. So you can literally just scan that of the QR code, and I'll wait for this to come up. And the question is, what type of events do you currently use most in your security business? Are these in-person industry trade shows and conferences? Are they, a mix of different types of events, virtual webinars, online events, small in-person events, or you rarely participate in that of these? So we're going to give this just another 5-10 seconds or so. And give this just another moment here. Looks like most of us are a mix of multiple, which is great, actually. And that's what it is that we're going to be covering today. So I'm going to go on to the next question in just a couple seconds. Perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's go on to the second question, which is, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to events? Is it generating qualified leads? Is it standing out from competitors, measuring ROI / providing or proving value, managing costs and resources, converting event contacts into sales, or engaging that of attendees effectively? So we'll give this just a moment to answer this as well. And once again, as you answer this, take into consideration how you responded and what others, like what are your peers, what are your industry peers throughout the country, how are they responding as well? And we'll give this just another few moments or so. Okay, and yeah, it looks like converting event contacts into sales, and then we've got a three-way tie for generating quality leads, measuring ROI, and then effective engaging attendees effectively. Okay, great. The good news is we're going to be speaking about all these in great detail. And then really quickly, the last question is, so what's your primary goal for participating in events this year in 2025? Is it to build your brand, generate leads, networking, showcasing your products and services, learning about industry trends, or building relationships with existing customers? So we'll give each of us just a couple moments just to do this, and we'll get into the agenda and move forward. I know we could obviously not cheat, but we could have one that's all of the above, but we want to know what's the primary purpose of that, if that makes sense. So we'll give this just another moment, and then we're going to move forward. So once again, lead gen, which is not a surprise, networking and lead gen are going to be 1 and 2. So thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone for actively participating in that of our actual live poll. And once again, I hope that you were able to see how you compared versus that of your peers. So in terms of over these next few minutes, what we're going to cover is we'll be discussing webinar excellence. We're going to be talking about in-person event mastery. We'll be talking about, and then we're going to be wrapping up with that of enhanced audience engagement in terms of from the networking perspective. And keep in mind, just as a reminder, you may be on the vendor side, you may be on the integrator side. These things are going to hold true for you. And I'm going to try and use specific examples and be a little bit specific to both sides of the equation here, just to maximize out of the value. Okay, so in terms of like why webinars matter, here's the thing. When it comes to marketing and all of the advertising that we do, we're able to, how do I say this? Like we're able to really help with that of, building that of deep, well, when it comes to that of traditional advertising, you're not able to have that deep connection, if that makes sense. Whereas like with webinars or in the in-person events, you're able to spend more time and allow for others to know, like, and trust you, if that makes sense. So, keep these things in mind. And really the big key here is we want to be building that of deep connections, if that makes sense. One moment. Okay, so the other thing is, and I just briefly touched on this, it allows to like position yourself as that of a thought leader. And what I mean by that is you're able to really, in a very detailed way, really clearly communicate all of the knowledge that you possess, excuse me, and to really communicate, the experience that you have, all of the knowledge that you possess, and really position yourself as that thought leader. Because here's the thing, we want to, and for those of you that have been on sessions before that I have one-on-one discussions with, that I always refer to know, like, and trust, and that factor, that ability. And these are really, really important. The other thing is, one of the byproducts is not only building your brand and building your reputation, but you're able to generate that of leads. And the other big thing is from the marketing standpoint, and one of the biggest challenges in terms of groups that we speak with across the entire spectrum is, Dave, like one of the biggest challenges I have is like creating actual content, high quality content. And the good news is with webinars, it puts us in a position to generate that of a tremendous amount of great high value content and things in that regard. In terms of speaking of content, it's like, all right, Dave, well, maybe easy for you. I know you do webinars every single month, but like I have no idea as to how I should get started with creating content. And I'm not going to go through the entire gamut and things in that regard, but I want to focus like from the integrator perspective. From the integrator perspective, keep in mind, and I know I have these, I feel like a little bit of deja vu because, I have these discussions on a day in, day out basis. And the key here is with that of this is you want to make sure that you're positioning topics that are not necessarily, this is all the things that we offer. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that on occasion, but sprinkle that in. But you really want to make sure that you're speaking to your audience. Like, for example, you may be working with residential end users, with SMB, with medium or larger or end user commercial end users. You may be focused on that of, how do I say this? You may be focused on that of specific, key, you may be focused on that of specific key industries or types. Like, for example, I received an email from earlier this morning from someone that had mentioned, there really are that their target market is that of the real estate / property management vertical markets. And, to me here, the key is, and I'm not, I'm going to totally butcher this because fortunately there's many individuals that are much sharper than I at creating content and things in that regard. But, to me, it's like the state of access control or the state of security or the state of video surveillance for that of the, for that of, let's just say the real estate professional or the property management professional within, and then insert your geographic market, things in that regard. And keep in mind, like, the things that we learn at like an ISC West or through that of some of the vendor training that we have or through the industry magazines, keep in mind, speaking of the industry magazines, they typically will have an editorial calendar, and especially those end user vertical market, the end user magazines. These are things that you can take into consideration and look at those as topics that are important, especially if I'm not going to name names here, but like especially ones that are focused on key vertical markets that are going to resonate with what you, with the vertical markets that you work with. You can use that as a blueprint, not only for, and not that we're talking about blogs and social and things in that regard, but you can use that in terms of creating, that of the editor, or you can create that of some of these various topics. The other things that we see happen without some integrators is they partner with some of the technology partners that they work with. So they make this like a can't miss type event. The other thing to take into consideration is using that of, speaking of that of showcasing your unique experience, you can look to that of some of the end users that you're working with, that you've created end user like case studies or like some of the case studies, and really look to speak about what the challenge was, have your customers share peer-to-peer in terms of things that make sense for them, and communicate that. And the good news is some of these obviously are going to be like evergreen topics. And of course, there's going to be topical topics or things that are like hot in the news cycle. And that's okay, but you definitely don't want to be focused on, you want to have things that are evergreen topics that whether it's today or whether it's 12 months from now or 6 months from now, these are going to be topics that are going to be relevant to that of your audience, if that, if that makes sense. So, keep all these things in mind. In terms of that of the actual tech toolkit. So like, for example, I happen to be using Zoom webinar. Obviously, most of us, we're going to be using like a Teams or like a, GoToMeeting, things in this regard. We want to make sure that we are, we want to make sure that we're using that of the right tech toolkit. You can even use like Zoom meeting and things in that regard. And make sure that like, you're not just like, quote unquote, I know it's hard to see me, but you're not, I'm using air quotes, you're winging it. Make sure that you have the essential equipment basics. Now, I happen to have, a nice DSLR camera that's got a nice lens. I've got a microphone here. I've got lights. I've got stuff behind me. And for those of you, this is not a virtual background. This is a real background. I've got things focused. I do have special software that zooms in a little bit more so on me as well. But make sure that you're practicing with this. Like, do a test run, even if it's with one of your colleagues. And frankly, you can reach out to us and I'd be happy to provide you with some more details and considerations to make sure that you have that production value. Because look, we've all been on these webinars, whereas there's technical challenges and you can see that, look, it's a lot easier to have this, whereas I'm getting that eye contact if I'm in a live audience, if that makes sense, because I can really walk the room and get that feedback, and I can raise my voice and lower my voice based on feedback that I'm receiving. And here, the only feedback that I'm receiving is going to be chat, the live, the live polls that we just ran, I'm getting this feedback from this camera and things in that regard. So you want to make sure you've got some of those, but really you don't need all these fancy things. And keep in mind, you can literally use Zoom, the meeting itself. You don't have to pay for extra things in that regard. The other thing is with screen sharing best practices. I would recommend for you to have 2 screens. So you've got your primary screen that is here, and then notes or any other information that's helpful. If you've got a secondary screen, it's going to put you in a position, like, look, you may be on the road when you're conducting a webinar just because. And if that's the case, by the way, if you happen to have an iPad, you can actually use your iPad on a side note as your secondary monitor. If you don't have it, It's not the end of the world, but this is where then you'll want to have a few things that are literally on the old-fashioned paper, some of your notes and things in that regard to keep you moving forward. But the big thing is, do not show up and for those of you, I know it's harder to see me, don't just show up and say, oh, let's see what happens. Like, you want to make sure that you're preparing and you're being methodical about things, if that makes sense. The other thing is, I'm not sure, Nicole, if you're on, but if you don't mind either turning on the AC or opening up my door, I would greatly appreciate it because it's getting a little warm in here. Okay, so in terms of like overcoming some of the tech hurdles, I know I talked a little bit about this, but run a test. And literally, like for me, I happen to be doing Zoom webinar. So like I am already past that of running the test with things in that regard. But especially if this is the first time, make sure that you're testing it exactly the way that you would be doing it in advance, just so that you make sure you're in good shape. Have a backup plan. And look, knock on some wood, in terms of like our internet, we do have backup internet. In terms of power, well, you know what, like I said, knock on some wood, we're going to be in good shape. You want to minimize distractions. And I say this, like I happen to be in my office, I happen to be in my office and, and things in that regard, and look, things happen, right? I have closed out my email. I have muted that of my, how do I say this? I've muted that of my, that of my notifications, because like I get distracted very easily. And for those of you that know me well, I can't chew and talk at the same time. So you want to make sure you mute those things. Like even with your phone, don't either put it on airplane mode or make sure you're not paying attention to it, so you're in the moment. Because look, the production value of these are really, really important. Because you don't want for all of the substance, all of the great things that you're sharing, you don't want for that to go on the wayside because you're not in this 110%, if that makes sense. So in terms of that, of, knowing once again, look, once again, knock on some wood, hopefully we won't have any technical challenges, but I have had some technical challenges over, over the course of the last, I think this is webinar number 20 or 21. We're all human. We all make mistakes. The chances are, if you make a mistake, you may be the only one to know that that was a mistake and just keep moving along. And I do see, I'm not going to call out names, but I see many of my good friends that are here that are pros on stage and on the virtual stage. And you know what I'm talking about. You want to just keep moving forward. So with that said, let's keep moving forward. And here's the thing. Engagement, especially in webinars, engagement is everything. It's so important, because imagine if we're just having this 1 hour long conversation, and if I didn't ask you one question, I didn't ask you one question. I mean, speaking of asking a question, I mean, has anyone been in a webinar, and we won't name names because maybe you all may say, well, Dave, it was one of yours. I'm just kidding. But have you ever been on a webinar before? And it's like just blah, 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 blah. And it's like putting you to sleep and things in that regard. If that's the case, type 1 in the chat. I'm going to type 1 in the chat because I've been on those myself. So I appreciate everyone engaging with that. So speaking of engagement, you want to make sure that you're asking open-ended questions. And it's nothing wrong with asking a yes or no answer, but if you ask a yes or no answer, like the way it is here now, I see a number of ones, and thank you everyone for actively participating. You're going to get that. Whereas if you ask an open-ended, a subjective question, it's going to start that conversation and get it going, and it'll grow legs and things in that regard. Just like what we did a couple of minutes ago, you can use polls. So I happen to use a tool called Slido. I believe it's slido.com. If not, we can get you the actual, but if you do a Google search for Slido polls, you'll be able to find it on Google or Perplexity or what have you. And you want to make sure that you're in this case, like weaving relevant industry case studies. Look, the topic that we're discussing, it's relevant to virtually all businesses, but we're hyper-focusing this on each and every single one of you, because each and every single one of you are within our ecosystem, within that of the security industry. And rather than me just reading from the slides, I want to make sure that I'm sharing specific industry stories and things in that regard. So like, for example, not just this, but, and I know we had a lot of, call it housekeeping things out of the gate. And I wanted to move through this because we've got a number of great pieces of information that are super important, super important for you. But you want to make sure that you're weaving, all of these kinds of things. The other thing is you want to make sure that you're encouraging audience members to share their experiences in the chat. And this was just a prime, awesome. Thank you, Isabella. I really appreciate you adding the Slido in there. And this is just like, I may ask throughout the course of this, type a one in here, put a heart in here, put a this in there, where, and this is like ideally every 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. And you don't have to do that every 2 or 3 minutes, but if you do that, that keeps your audience engaged. The other thing is you want to make sure that marketing for that of your webinar is, want to make sure that we're in good shape here in terms of, one sec here. So in terms of marketing your webinar for success, so like there's 5 things that we've identified that are going to really be super helpful in terms of things. So like number one, you want to craft that of a compelling registration page, and we want to make sure you have clear benefits. So like, for example, the reason why we have RSVP or registration pages to be able to register for this is because we want to make sure we're capturing lead database. Like I'm going to skip to number 5 and I'm coming back to number 1 because these 2 things go hand in hand. With that of LinkedIn, the whole point here is and I'm not saying as great as we are, but as great as each and every single one of you are, you're not going to have 100% attendee rate. Let's just say you've got 100 people that are RSVPing. It's going to be a percentage. You may have anywhere from like 15 to 30, 15 to 40 people that attend it live based on a number of different factors. And where I'm going with this is when you have that registration or that RSVP page, what it does is it helps to build your database so that you're able to remarket to these types of individuals, and you're able to see who attended live and who didn't. The big thing is you don't, some of the things that I see very often is you're not having, like, for example, and I'm just going to use Zoom, whether it's Zoom meeting or Zoom webinar as an example. It'll allow for you to have that nice header graphic that has continuity with that of the marketing, that you've done to be able to market for that particular event. You want to make sure that you've got like the title, description, key learning objectives, and you want to make sure that these things are super, that they're relevant to what you're discussing, but they are going to be super helpful in terms of, really evoking that curiosity, making and wanting individuals to actually RSVP. And I say this because, I get asked all the time, well, Dave, don't we have like webinar fatigue? I mean, I know we've gotten, well, I shouldn't say we've gotten past, but what happened in 2020, changed everything. And we switched everything from live in person to everything webinar based. And there's a lot of webinar fatigue. And this is why you've got to make sure you're not letting anything go to chance in terms of the content, in terms of your historical webinars that you've done, in terms of delivering value, in terms of making sure that you're making things very, very compelling with that of the clear benefits, things in that regard. You want to make sure that you're targeting your promotion, and you want to use any and all, how do I say this? You want to make sure that you're using any and all opportunities, things in that regard, whether it's using email marketing, social media, even industry groups, things in that regard, industry forums. And keep in mind, I know today we're not talking about email, but you want to make sure that you're building your lists, making sure that you're in great shape in terms of, want to make sure that you're in great shape in terms of building your lists, because you want to build your audience and you have direct control of that and things in that regard. You want to make sure that you have teaser videos, and keep in mind, look, and I know it's hard to see me, but like with this device here, and I'm holding up my cell phone, you don't need, look, I'm very fortunate and blessed. I've got many members of the team here that do professional video production and professional video editing. But there are tools like Raw is Real. Even if you're doing a 10, 15, 30-second video, like for example, I think it was yesterday, if my memory serves me correct, I think yesterday before I got in the office, I was sitting in the car and did a quick video. I did a quick video talking about today's session and talking about ISC West. It does not require you having to have professional production. Keep in mind, I happened to be in my car, so I was holding it with my hand, but you can spend like $10, $15 on Amazon to get a tripod to hold it so it's a lot more steady and things in that regard. But, and look, for those of you that do have video editors on staff or you work with a marketing agency that can help you with this, obviously you can have a diversity in terms of the videos that are really helping to promote and have like that hype and teaser videos talking about things. Because not only do you want to have like graphics and copy, but you want to have videos and have a nice mix there. And look, you can partner, like for example, a few, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 sessions ago. I worked closely with, with my good friend Audrey Pearson and we did a session on sales and marketing. And look, whether it's doing a session together or whether they are promoting, because maybe you're promoting their events, you want to make sure that you're doing that. So getting back to LinkedIn event page, this is one of the effective ways that we really help to boost up our numbers. Not only do we market directly to our landing page on the Zoom webinar, but you can, for those of you, you can easily create a LinkedIn event page for free. It takes just minutes. You'll add all of the relevant information, including if you've got multiple presenters, you want to add all of them to that. You want to make sure that you have all the necessary information. And these are things that you can promote. And speaking of the promotion of this, you're able to, I believe, every week, you're able to promote this, I believe, to 1,000, if my memory serves me correct. I think it's every week, if my memory serves me correct. Don't hold me to that. And you can do that for free. And all it takes, and once you develop your system, it literally, it does not take very much time. So in terms of like, you know, for example, today, I happen to be recording this session, and all the webinars that we do, we record. When you conduct your webinars, make sure that you record them. And one tip or trick that I've learned the hard way is when you go through the configuration setup of setting up your actual webinar, record it at that time, meaning click the button that says record this session so that you do not forget. Because keep in mind, you know, you may be wondering, oh my gosh, I've got this, I'm focused on my slides, I'm, you know, focused on all these things. And all of a sudden you remember, you forget to hit the record. Uh-oh, that's a big problem. So make sure you record the session. Here's why. There are so many things that you can do in terms of, you know, once again, as I mentioned, not everyone that RSVP'd for today. And once again, for all of you that are here live, thank you, thank you, thank you. You may not be able to see this, and my daughter's going to give me a hard time for doing a really poor option of a not option, but a poor heart. But that's me saying I really appreciate each and every single one of you. And the same thing holds true for these of you, for those of you that watch this on demand. But you're able to have that on demand recording of the session. You also, you know, keep in mind on your website, you can have it to be what's referred to as gated content. And when I say gated, meaning in order to access it, you have to fill in your information. In our particular case, we started that way, and we came to the conclusion that we were going to not have it gated, but have it be accessible by anyone. But you can look to do things either or. The other thing is, you know, look, long form content, i.e. what we're doing right now, can equal many, many, many short form content. Remember, we talked a couple minutes ago about how one of the biggest challenges for us is to create content. So one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm creating content. So like, for example, you know, what my team can do after the fact is they can take 2, 5, 10, 20, 30 different, you know, anywhere from 10 to 60-second clips of what we deem to be insightful information. And we can promote that on social media, on our website, via email, things in this regard. And keep in mind, you know, look, there are third-party tools like AI-based tools that can help you if you don't have internal video editors that can help you to do these things for pennies on the dollar, meaning for very, very, very reasonable. You know, and keep in mind, if you'd like a list of these things, let us know. We can get you a list of these things if that would be helpful for you. And the other thing is, it's really important to reflect. Once again, I think if you can relate to what I'm about to say, I'm going to start this off by saying me. And I guess before you type me in the chat, let me share with you what you're going to be committing to saying me to. Is, you know, we're all our own worst critic. Like, after I get done with this webinar, I'm going to have at least 5 or 10 things that I'm saying, oh, darn. I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I would have done that differently. We're all our worst. We're all not our worst, but we're all our biggest critics in things in that regard. So where I'm going with this is, if you can relate to that, type me in the actual chat. And I know a number of you are typing it. By the way, just to host and panelist, as a reminder, if you type host and panelist, that's only going to come to me. If you share this with everyone, that means everyone is going to see that, just as a reminder. So I appreciate those of you like Kalia and Jerry that said to everyone. There's a number of you that shared just to me directly. I won't share you by name. But the big thing here is you can analyze that of the recording for effectiveness. You can analyze it for the engagement and see as to where you can make improvements, because look, you want to always be making improvements. And that obviously goes beyond that of webinars and just generally speaking as well. In terms of the post-webinar success, So you want to make sure, like, for example, for those of you that have been in our webinars before, within an hour or two, give or take, after our session, you're going to get an email that's going to have a recording of our link. You're going to have a link to register for that of the upcoming webinar that'll be taking place this next month. So you want to make sure that within a reasonable amount of time, you're able to send this. And by the way, for us, we send this to everyone, just as a FYI. So I would recommend to do this, because keep in mind, and not to get too far off in a tangent, but this is a really important point. The marketing that we do for these webinars is not necessarily just for each of you that are attending this live. It is for it's for our entire database. Obviously, we want to maximize the amount of live individuals that are watching this so that you're able to take away information. But remember, for yourselves, you're building yourself into who your audience knows, likes, and trusts. So you want to make sure you're marketing this to all. The other thing is you can potentially segment that of your the attendees based on certain things, including engagement, the types of like, once again, we have alarm dealers. We've got the entire spectrum. I'm not going to go through the entire spectrum here, but we've got individuals, as I'm taking a look at each of you, that are across the board, across multiple layers of that of the entire ecosystem. So I'm going to say the only offer that we made was a free offer to, well, I should say a couple, but like to come to our event. If you're not RSVP'd for a King Pens and Cocktails event at ISU West, please RSVP. I would love to see you there, and we can have some conversations over there. But you may want to, like, for example, for an integrator or on the vendor side as well, we may have, like, let's just say on the vendor side, maybe we're offering a new, we're launching a new product. And what we're doing is we're starting this, we would promote the webinar as focus on the challenges and things in this regard. And then we talk a little bit about that of the new product that we're, how that's solving that of that particular challenge and things in that regard. On the, like, the integrator front, you may want to have some type of free evaluation, maybe perhaps, you're like on the fire side, and maybe as a lead magnet, maybe one of the offers that you're giving is a free inspection, like a free fire inspection, because that could lead to other opportunities for yourself, as an example. Things in that regard. So you may want to make sure that you're offering that, whether it's in the beginning, middle, and the end, and things in that regard. The other thing you want to do is survey, because it's important to get feedback to make sure that what you're doing is truly making a difference and really impacting. And you want to make sure you're tracking key metrics, because the thing is, if let's just say, for example, if let's just say that I happen to be, instead of giving information that's going to be helpful and useful, I'm going through just a straight pitch. And let's just say we had 100 people that were on live, and all of a sudden it went down from 100 to maybe 5. You want to make sure that you're tracking that, if that makes sense, in terms of the effectiveness of the ROI in terms of the webinar. And I've already talked about, so I'm not going to get into too much detail, but we want to make sure that we have an effective strategy for post-event marketing in terms of, where are we posting, creating shorts, email beyond on your website, and where things are posted and things in that regard. And keep in mind, we deploy that of the omni-channel presence, meaning you want to make sure that you're going across all of your social platforms, email, website, all of the above. Like when you're, even when you're meeting with customers, meeting with prospects at local chambers of commerce, talk about these things, because remember, you want to elevate your status into the authority locally in your markets. Obviously, from the vendor perspective, you want to make sure that you're doing this with consistency, and making sure that you're positioning yourself as the authority, and the fact that you're delivering value beyond just what you directly position, because you want to be perceived. It's like, for us as an example, so many of our customers, they come to us and they ask us questions about things that they need help with beyond that of what we do. And the reason why this is the case is because we really look to position ourselves as that of the authority, and I'd really like the same for each and every single one of you. So let's transition towards that of the in-person events. So in terms of the in-person events, you want to make sure you're starting off with selecting the right types of events. I'm going to be Captain Obvious right now, but you want to make sure that you're going to events where your target audience is present, right? You want to make sure that, and why? Because that's going to be really helpful to build that of your brand and lead gen. Like, for example, for us, I talked a number of times about ISC West this next week, but that's one of, approximately a dozen shows that we do on an annual basis throughout the entire country. And for each of us, whether we're on the vendor side or on the integrator side, we want the same thing to hold true for you. Keep in mind, Look, there are various types of events. For us, we go to obviously the ISC West of the world, but we also go to smaller events. I recently came back from the IAF, or the Integration Association of Florida annual event. And obviously we go to many events anywhere in between. There may be local networking events, like for example, with SIA. SIA has the SIA there, their webinar or virtual based events, and it makes it. Well, I'm sorry, they used to be virtual. Now they're in person. They do still have some virtual, but they travel to various cities throughout the entire country. Like these are networking, but keep in mind for each and every single one of us, especially on the integrator and dealer side and guard company side, you want to be going to like your local chamber events, things in that regard, like where your customers are. Or if you happen to be, let's say that you're working with property manager, there may be property management shows and things in that regard. You want to make sure that you're also spending time researching, not just researching for prospects, but researching for events and taking into consideration history. So, usually these things will happen if maybe they're multiple times per year, maybe it's once per year. So you can start working in your calendar. Like, for example, we have our calendar for the entire 2025 in terms of events. And look, we make some changes throughout the year, but we have a general understanding in terms of what are the events that we're going to, in terms of some of the reputation, what are the opportunity types, and what's the expected attendance. And when I say opportunity types, what I mean by that is, in some cases, they allow for sponsorship. They may allow for you to have a table or a trade show booth. They may allow for you to speak. And they may allow you to have the database and things in that regard. And speaking of speaking, maybe that I shouldn't have said it that way, but in terms of that, keep in mind, look, there's an old adage, I believe, in the Bible, if my memory serves me correct, not to turn this into a religious discussion, but like, ask and you shall receive. My point being here, not to be sacrilegious, but you want to ask. Like, the worst case scenario is someone's going to say no. Look, for ISC West, as an example, this is for the vendors. Keep in mind, in May, give or take, the call for presentations are going to open up for ISC East this year and for ISC West in 26. For many of the smaller regional shows, and this is going to also hold true for the integrator side, you don't necessarily need to do this 12 months in advance. But my point being here is build relationships with that of the event organizers. See as to how you can help them volunteer. Build those deep relationships and bring value, and not for it to necessarily just be a straight pitch, but to be able to help them to achieve their goals and to bring more value. Remember, your competitors are not doing the things that we're talking about today. In terms of some pre-event prep, in terms of some keys to our success, create some clear goals and some measurable objectives. And I know it goes without saying, because I know, once again, with the question that we asked a few minutes ago, in terms of the primary objectives as lead gen, remember, I think we all would agree that we could, how do I say this? Like, every single one of the responses there are part of the value, meaning you want to spend time, obviously, with customers. Like for us at IC West, we have reached out to every single one of our customers to be able to schedule time with them, because we want to make sure that we are, we want to make sure that we get some time together, because we're speaking and communicating with them virtually. We want to make sure we're spending time with them, but it's not just that. We're spending time with industry strategic partners. Obviously, we're, generating leads, but my point being here is you want to elevate that of your status, and you want to make sure you have multiple goals and objectives. But remember, do not go there, and I know it's hard to see me, without a plan. Go there with a plan. This is the video that I talked about, I think yesterday morning, that I posted on LinkedIn. You want to make sure, in terms of what the things that you're doing at your events, you want to make sure you have a compelling message that is geared towards your target audience. I know these things go without saying, but you would be so surprised with the things that I see. And I'm sure I'm not going to ask because I don't want to, but like, I know we all feel the same way. And here's one of the big things as well. And I'll share with you with us as an example, but you want to make sure that you prepare your team. Now, mind you, if it's just you going to an event, well, make sure you prepare yourself. But if you've got a team that's not used to going to all these events, like for us, once again, there will be 9 or 10 of us at ISC West this year. We're taking a large contingent of our team. And you want to make sure that you train them on messaging, on lead capture. And like, for example, we've got meetings scheduled later this week for prep, and then we'll have meetings scheduled on site, so that by the time that we are, that the trade show starts, or as we're networking at events, individuals that may not necessarily be in like the biz dev role, they're able to hold their own in terms of having conversations and feeling the confidence to have relationships with individuals that they've just met and things in that regard. So please make sure that you're always prepping and have a plan for everything. And here's the thing, you want to stand out from the crowd because look, for us, for us, there are a few other marketing agencies in the industry. I would argue that, look, many of you may say, well, okay, I'm not going to go down that path. But my point being here is when you are at events, you may have competitors. And the key here is you want to stand out from the crowd. And a lot of it happens before the show, and a lot of it happens during the show. So look, if it's applicable, if you have a booth, make sure that your booth is very clear, it's very professional, it's consistent in terms of not just the messaging, but also the visual elements. And it says the same thing. Like I'll tell you what, not just with the booth, but just across all the marketing. There are many times, and look, I'm not going to ask everyone to say yes to me in the chat, but feel free to if you like. I'm looking at someone's marketing, including their booth, and then I'm having a conversation with them, and it's not saying the same thing. That's super, super important. The other thing is you want to make sure you're offering unique experiences or demos. Like, for example, with us, and I know we can get away with things maybe perhaps versus others, but like one of the things that we're doing last year, for those of you who came by your booth, you remember we created fresh tees. Like you came by our booth. We have 4 design options. You choose the design. You let us know your t-shirt size, and we'll make you a new fresh t-shirt on the spot. Now, this year, we're going to be doing the same. So we're going to have 2025 custom ISC West shirts that we're making. Once again, you come by our booth, you let us know what your shirt size is, and we're going to do a quick heat press on the spot. And you're going to be able to, and by the way, I'd love for you to be walking around with those shirts. That I'd greatly appreciate, but you don't have to. You can take some home for your kids as well. Keep in mind, there are things that we can do here in terms of demoing that of some of the solutions that we offer. Look, for that of many of the integrators or the alarm dealers that we're working with, even the guard companies, one of the emerging, and when I say emerging, it is here to stay. Video monitoring, whether it's going to be on visual verification, all the way to remote guarding and everywhere in between. This is something that we see as big, and not all the end users know about this. Although the end users, there's a lot of end user demand gen now versus that of, how do I say this, versus that of, even 6 months ago. And it's continuing to grow. And I say that because keep in mind, we measure all this data because we're measuring all this data with all the groups that we're working with. And there is a lot more demand. So by the way, if you do video surveillance and you're not layering services on top of it, I'm not going to say shame on you, but give me a call. I'll give you some friendly advice based on what works with all the other groups that we're working with and things in that regard. And Judy says, thanks, Judy, for being here, by the way. I know we need to catch up. I appreciate your kind words. Such a clever idea on the shirts and things in that regard. Yes, I will, full disclosure, I have 2 better halves, my wife and my business partner. And this was my business partner's idea. And yes, it worked out incredibly well last year. And that's why we're going to be doing it again this year. And, my good friend Kirk, thanks Kirk for making the time to be here today. And Kirk was on a call, earlier today with a client reviewing their strategic plan, which they were sharing with potential advisors, strategic plan, and their website was not in sync. You're right on with your comments. Thank you, Kirk. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'll tell you what, you think it's maybe just the smaller groups in our industry. It's not. And I'll tell you what, that's why it's so important for you to be. It is all about the details. So thank you, Judy and Kirk, for sharing your thoughts on this. The other thing is you want to leverage that a pre-event promotion. I just shared this right now, and I just shared that of our event. But for each of yourselves, think about things that are in. Look, I know we all have variable or various budgets and things that we can do for this, and we can be creative. And once again, if you'd like to run some ideas, work with, schedule a meeting through Isabella, and we can schedule a 15-20-minute conversation. I'd be happy to share some of these ideas. By the way, I don't want you to feel like you can only speak with me if we're going to be talking about potentially doing marketing with you. Look, part of our mission over the last 14 years is to bring more awareness to marketing and ideas and things in that regard. And for those of you that have taken me up on that offer, I was happy to do so, and I'd be happy to help. Obviously, we'd love to be able to help you with your marketing if we both feel like it's a great fit. But I'd love to have these conversations with you and to share some best practices and things in that regard. In terms of lead capture and things in that regard, I feel like I'm a little behind schedule, so I'm going to start picking things up here a little bit because I want to be very respectful of everyone's time. But we want to make sure that you're leveraging lead capture. Like, we have made big failures on this in the past, and we've got plans. We have procedures and things in place to make sure that we not only are capturing leads, but we also are following up with them in a timely fashion. Make sure that you've got a post-event follow-up strategy, because there's nothing worse than you investing good time, good dollars, and then not generating the ROI, not because the potential wasn't there, but because you didn't properly follow up and have a proper marketing and sales follow-up plan. Please, please, please do not make some of the mistakes that we've made over the years. So, and remember, success, it starts before you arrive. And I'm going to be really quick about this because we've already discussed this. And keep in mind, I'm going to skip through a couple of these things here. This actually is really, really important. And I'll speak briefly about us, but I'll also talk about this from the integrator's perspective. You'll notice, and I'm not going to, I'll scoot up. You're going to really be able to see me, but we belong once again to many associations, but we don't just pay money every year. We actively participate. And I volunteer, and we as a company, we volunteer. So make sure that you not only are joining, so like from the integrator standpoint, I'm using the example of, let's say, real estate or like property management, but it could be healthcare, it could be, it could be any industry or vertical market, chambers of commerce, etc. Join, but also volunteer. And I realize time is our worst enemy, and that's all we have is our time. But make sure that you're joining in things in that regard. Explore that of sponsorship opportunities, and perhaps maybe there's even trade that can be done and bartering and things in that regard. Be creative, do things that will help to really help build your brand and position yourself as like that local security liaison, especially if there's other security companies that are just paying members and they don't actively participate like the way you do, and building relationships in that and things in that regard. And make sure you're doing it all year round, things in that regard. Let's see here. Judy says industry associations and chambers of commerce are the gold mine opportunity, but only when you participate. Yeah. Speaking of gold mine and gold, Judy, 100% agree with exactly what you just said. In terms of social media, like social media is that of your event amplifier. And I'm not going to get too deep into this because I've already talked briefly about it, but make sure, speaking of creating content, and I'm not going to have time to read these, but we had a number of questions that came in before today's session. But as you get questions that come about, make sure that you can use those because if someone has a question about something, is my point, they may not be the only one with that question. And these are things that you can discuss during your session, as well as marketing of the session, as well as after the session, in terms of things in that regard. Look, keep in mind with that of your, you'll notice that when I'm at events, even though I cringe at taking my own picture, I do it because it helps to build the brand, and it helps to let others know where I am and to let them know that I'm going to be coming and things in that regard. So like take selfies, and keep in mind, take selfies with your friends, with your colleagues, as you're networking, things in that regard. Share bite-sized updates and things in that regard, and make sure that you're engaging with others. Look, for example, whether it's like an ISC West or maybe it's a local show from the integrator perspective, you're going to know who the speakers are and make sure you're building relationships and networking with them before, during, and afterwards. The big thing is, speaking of speaking, and I'll be really quick about this, it is so important. Like so many of us, we should all be taking advantage of this. If you're not taking advantage of this, and look, I have been doing this, and I'm not saying that I'm a great presenter, but like I put my heart and soul into this, and I am trying to be as authentic. And for those of you that know me well, what you see is what you get with this. But like practice, and this is why like perfection is the enemy of getting things done. Like just do it, right? Like our good friends at Nike say, because it allows you to showcase your expertise. And remember, I just mentioned practice. It is practice, 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 and amplify or market this, to be able to get the good news out. Because what that does is, even individuals that are not here live, that don't watch this on demand, they know that I personally, we as a company, are holding events on educational marketing-based sessions. And what this does is this builds your brand. Okay, so Judy, once again, here's a pro tip. Save your LinkedIn profile as a QR code. It's a smart way to connect instantly without burning through your invitation limits. I think that's a wonderful idea. And a bonus tip is use your phone's note app to draft a quick follow-up script mentioning the conference and key points discussed, copy and paste in LinkedIn messages to leave a clear electronic paper trail. Yeah, Judy, that's once again, speaking of gold, that's spot on. Those are excellent tips. So thank you for sharing that with everyone. So make sure everyone that's watching this live, make sure you copy and paste those in your notes. And these are great things to do. Keep in mind that of the attendee list, it's your gold mine. Obviously, you want to make sure you're obtaining the list ethically. And once again, this goes back into asking. And obviously, we won't be able to get that from like the organizers of ISC West. But for many of the smaller shows that we go to on the vendor side, as well as on the integrator side, they actually will give you the list and make sure that you're using it according to the rules so that you don't get on their naughty list. And the next time that you've got an event with them, they'll continue to give you that list. And then keep in mind, you want to make sure that it's segmented based on customer types and things in that regard. And make sure that you're personalizing your follow-up outreach, but make sure that you're utilizing this because you want to, once again, whereas I would imagine all of us in the industry are getting so many emails about come see me here, come see me booth number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But are we getting, there's 750, 800 exhibitors. Are we getting notes from all 780? No. I think maybe I've gotten like 40, 50, 60. My point being here is you're in the minority if you're taking advantage of these, you're in the minority. So keep rock and rolling with this stuff. And the big thing is you want to make sure that at events, we're not looking at this from a transactional standpoint. I know this goes without saying, but you want to focus on building lifelong connections. And make sure that you're focused on that the approach should be relationship focused. And you want to practice and do research on some of the questioning or some of the techniques that are uncovering that of the needs of who you're speaking with. And make sure that you're, from the networking standpoint, it's not like I would say, I'm going to say Kirk as an example. It's like, Kirk and I know each other well, but if I were to go to Kirk and say, Kirk, let's just say Kirk and I had just met. And it's like, Kirk, hi, I'm David, SD Marketing. We do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tell me about your website. Tell me about your marketing. Oh, we can help you with this. Like, as nice and as great of a man as Kirk is, Kirk's with a smile in a very respectful way. He's going to figure out a way to exit stage left. And I know what I'm sharing is like, it goes without saying, but once again, you would be surprised how many times I get pitched virtually and in person and in that manner. And that's just the wrong approach, if that makes sense. So, let's just talk just for a minute or two about networking. And then I want to announce that of our next session, which is going to be on social media. Keep in mind, and I talked about this, but by the way, anyone that wants the slides or would like we'll have the recording, but if you like slides of this, let us know and we can get these over to you. You want to make sure in terms of breaking the ice, because some of us may naturally not be great at networking, but ask open-ended questions, find common ground, and demonstrate, but in a genuine way, like genuine interest, and have that active listening. Because look, we all sometimes, I won't say all of us, but generally speaking, we like to hear ourselves talk. So when you ask others questions, it allows them to open up and things in that regard. So, okay. Yes, I'm not going to reference you by name, but yes, I did get your note and we can definitely get that for you. I'll make sure before I actually, let me just save this really quick. Yes, I'll make sure we get that for you. Not a problem. Mastering that of introductions. It's going to be important to go through if this is the first time that you've been to an event, get to your elevator pitch, because you don't want to be super long-winded. And it's like, okay, so let's say someone else tells about themselves and then you're talking about yourself. You don't want to be that individual that's spending 5 minutes and then it's like, all right, I'm sorry, what? And as you learn, highlight shared interest and things in that regard. And the other big thing is you want to make sure that you are, how do I say this? You want to make sure that how do I say this? You want to make sure that you as you get to know other individuals, it's like, for example, thanks Kirk for allowing me to keep picking on you, but I know, what Kirk does, which is business consulting in the industry. He works in the entire ecosystem. He helps with surveys, and really because he's, led, SDM top 100 companies. He's owned multiple companies. He does a lot of consulting throughout the entire. So my point being here is, as I come across someone that would need Kirk's help, even if it's not going to directly benefit me, the right thing to do is to connect this individual with Kirk or with others and things in that regard. And I'm telling you, and I don't do it to get paid back in dividends, but these are things that, and I'm not saying I do this even for Kirk to refer back to me as an example. I do it because it's the right thing to do. And you gain the respect because when that individual that you referred and they view you as a trusted advisor, that's going to come back to you. And when you get known as that, that really elevates your status in your respective industry. These things go without saying, so I'm going to just keep moving forward. Make sure that you're following up because that's one of the other issues that we have. It's like, and honestly, we've fallen prey to this as well. Whereas we have a great event on paper in terms of being there. And then what happens is by the time, we're following up, we're falling short. Now, the good news is for us, we have our plans in place for that, but make sure that you are not just doing this from a transactional standpoint, but delivering value. And by the way, make sure that you're taking notes on every single, and I think that Judy had referenced this earlier in one of her insights, is make sure that you're jotting those notes down so that you can personalize follow-up and things in that regard. Because look, like for example, with us, and I know with each and every single one of you, if you connect with 2 or 3 or 5 people, you don't have to write anything out. You're going to remember all of them. But if you connect with 100, 2, 3, 4, 500, 1,000 plus prospects, you've got to make sure that you are, how do I say this? You've got to make sure that you're jotting your notes down because as great as your memory is, your forgetter is going to get the best of you. So I've already talked on this, but have that giving mentality because that once again positions you as that of a trusted advisor and things in that regard. In LinkedIn, I'm a huge, for those of you that were connected on LinkedIn, I'm a huge proponent on LinkedIn. I know we're going to actually talk about this a little bit more in detail in our next session, but leverage that of social media to keep those conversations going and to stay in touch. So as we're wrapping up, first of all, once again, thank you. I want to announce that of the next, this next webinar. And what we're going to be talking about is that of, okay, perfect. We're going to be talking about social media. We're going to be going through an actual blueprint for social media lead generation and use this QR code. And once again, big thanks to our sponsor at Recognize. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. And of course, to all my team for helping to put all this content together. But please RSVP April 22nd from 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to be doing a deep dive, going beyond that of likes and shares to really help not only build your brand, to be able to connect, to build your audience, and to be able to drive leads with that of social. We're going to be also, how do I say this? We'll be incorporating some AI type ninja hacks, so to speak, as well. So really, really pumped and really, really excited about this. I want to thank, I think about 90+% of you, if not 95, everyone that started actually stayed till the end. And, I once again am incredibly thankful. I know we are just about to wrap up. If anyone has any questions, we may have time for a minute or two to answer 1 or 2 questions. If not, no worries, because I know we're already at the top of the hour. But thank you. I really, really appreciate everyone. I really, really appreciate, let me actually stop the share. So I really, really appreciate everyone spending time today. Appreciate all of you actively participating in that of the chat, in that of the actual live poll and things in that regard. For those of you that will be at IC West, which I believe is most of you, I really, really appreciate, I really, really look forward to seeing each and every single one of you. Love for you to come by the booth. We're going to make a fresh t-shirt for you. Let's see here. Another book. So a book from Judy is Bob Berg's The Go Giver. Yeah, that's a great book. Yeah, appreciate. Yeah, and Kirk agreed. That actually sounds like a great book. So wonderful. Well, with that said, we're going to wrap up today's webinar. And until next time, make it a great day and look forward to seeing each and every single one of you here shortly.